So this challenge of the academic pressures that you students face, I feel like is one where you see a lot of stress in your own kids, but it's also one that brings you stress because sometimes parents get pretty stressed out about this. I think all of us have definitions of success that we think about for ourselves, and they're definitions of success that we bring to our children too. And that can come with a whole set of pressures. I think particularly right now, because our definitions of success are changing around a lot. This was something that we got from our parent survey. I feel like we need to do it all to set our kids up for success. If I don't, it feels like I'm letting them down. It feels like success is even more out of reach, and everything that you're doing now matters for kind of getting your kids to succeed a little bit more. Here's just another one. I put pressure on my kids to succeed, and so my kids are stressed. Then I get stressed from seeing my kids stressed. Lots of laughs here suggesting this is something that kind of resonates. You want to help, but in your own anxiety about this, it can kind of make things worse. And so this is something else that the Surgeon General, who's been talking a lot about parent mental health, has mentioned. He notes that this kind of pressure to succeed is different and even harder now. He notes as technological and economic forces have reshaped the world at a dizzying pace, it's become harder for parents to prepare children for a future that's difficult to understand or predict, right? Should kids be studying computer science or economics? It's all changing really fast, and that can feel incredibly stressful. But I think what that does is cause parents to double down on certain things. Parents say, well, as it gets more and more kind of like changing around, well, we definitely need to make sure our kids get into really good colleges. And that definitely means we need to kind of pay attention. Even if we don't think we do, we think everybody else thinks we do. And here's another quote from parents. Even though my husband and I don't think it really matters where you go to college, my kids still feel this pressure from their peers to get into prestigious university, right? Even if you're trying to lay off, they're kind of experiencing this sort of pressure. Lots of nods in the audience from this one. And I think what that does is it causes our kids and us to focus a lot on grades and causes a lot of negative emotions that come up when those grades don't necessarily look maybe as good as this one does. I often joke that when a kid, gets a grade that maybe they're not as proud of, this is a hard thing for them. But it's actually, I think, also very hard on their parents who see this and are like, this is the most terrible thing. And you might want to regulate that emotion, but that's the thing that's there because you're so worried about success. Again, here's another good response from our parent survey. I want to encourage my child to focus on getting good grades, but I don't want to come off as too intense. But then you come off as kind of anxious about the grades, and it's really hard to strike the right balance there. Here's just another one. I feel worried when my kid doesn't focus on their grades. I worry about what it means for their future. So you're worried that you're not worried a lot, but you're worried that you're too worried. It's just this kind of big mess. And what that does is it causes parents to do particular things. It changes the way parents act. So lots of parents in the face of these kind of worries become a little bit helicopter parenting, my favorite kind of image of helicopter parents, where you're sort of hovering and checking and making sure everything's okay. But sociologists have told us that we've moved out of the helicopter parenting generation, and the generation that your children are in, it might be even worse. It's what researchers call lawnmower parents, where the idea is you're kind of not just swooping in when things get bad, but mowing the lawn so everything's perfect and there's nothing out of step and they won't trip and everything's just great and safe and so on. And we do this, of course, because we love our kids and we want to protect them and we want to make them healthy. But there's a good question about whether or not this is actually helping. I think in our brain we think it helps, but what do the data say? Well, here's a spot where we have really good data on this, because there was a recent, just in the last couple months, study that included this technique called a meta-analysis. What's a meta-analysis? Well, it's a paper that uses statistics where they grab the results of a bunch of different scientific studies at once to figure out a single conclusion, right? So it's like you take all the papers that are out there, put them all together statistically, so you get a really good window into what's going on. And this recent paper by Bradshaw and colleagues was a meta-analysis with over 100,000 data points. So it's going to tell us really what's happening. And it compared papers that looked at kind of the helicoptery parents that are a little over-controlling versus parents who report a lot of autonomy. You just let your kids figure out their own academics, you don't check in and so on. And the data could not be clearer. Helicopter parenting, controlling parents, they wound up decreasing students' well-being over time, whereas more autonomous parenting winds up increasing it. It's kind of the exact opposite effect that we think, right? And that kind of raises this interesting question of like, if you're just helping kids, why is that messing with their well-being, right? Why does overparenting not work? And here I love the lovely work of Julia Leonard, who's one of my colleagues at Yale, who studies what are the kinds of ways that kids develop their beliefs about their own abilities. And her hypothesis about the problem of overparenting is that one of the things that happens when we help kids out, when we helicopter in or lawnmower or just kind of take over when they're trying to do something, is they're using that as information about their own abilities. And if you in your busy life have to come in and swoop in and help them, they're thinking, my God, I'm really incapable, right? Like, I can't do any of this. I must be really at risk for messing up, right? This is a belief they're developing. And so she studies this in a really cute context. She does this with actually very young kids, young toddlers, where you bring toddlers and parents into the lab. You have the toddlers do this sort of tough puzzle that's really tricky, and you tell parents to help in different ways, either by kind of maybe helping with teaching a little bit, where you're not showing any answers, but you're just kind of asking some leading questions to try to help. So you might ask, as the kid's trying to do this puzzle to make a particular shape, they're not really kind of giving them the answer, but you're kind of pushing them along a little bit. That's the teaching condition. Versus the condition that looks a little bit more helicopter parenty, where you just kind of take over. You're kind of like, this is really hard, let me do it. You're not doing it fast enough, let me just do it. And if you don't think puzzles, think homework or college applications or talking to a scary adult, right? These are the kinds of things we do. This happens a few times in a row, and then parents leave, and the kids get to interact with a new puzzle. This one's a little bit different, the little brown box over there. It's a little bit harder. In fact, it's impossible. And that's for a particular reason. Because what Julia's interested in is when the kid's on their own and they get to kind of try something that's really hard, she wants to know, how long do they persist? How long do they keep at it? And so if you're a kid who has a belief that you're kind of capable and you could do it, you'll keep persisting. And maybe eventually you're like, this is impossible. And there's that other toy on the side is so the kids have something to switch to when they get bored and kind of figure out they can't do it. But if you're a kid who's convinced that, like, I'm bad at puzzles, I really need help, if there's not an adult here who can kind of help me take over, I'm never gonna get through it, you're gonna stop messing with this really quickly. And so Julia just measures how long kids interact with that tough puzzle. And what she finds when you measure the seconds that kids spend trying is that the kids in that taking over condition just wind up persisting for way less time, almost half the time of the other kids. And again, that was with puzzles. But let's think about what happens when our kids are doing their homework, applying to tough colleges, facing the possibility of failure, and so on. We think we're just helping get the outcome right, but we might be changing the theories that kids have about their own abilities, which is pretty scary and I think pretty dangerous and not what any parent obviously wants to do. And so that raises a question of, like, well, how can we help and navigate the fact that these academic pressures are bigger and realer, but not in a way that's going to undermine kids by overparenting? Again, we have our little strategies where we can change what we think, how we act, and what we feel. And that's what we'll be talking about next.